Hey everyone, welcome back to EEC Podcast, the place where English feels less like a subject and more like a real conversation you can actually enjoy and live inside every single day with us right here.
Hello, beautiful people. I'm Lily, and sitting with me, as always, is Mike. And today we are going to talk about something that quietly controls many lives, but almost nobody openly talks about.
Yeah, and before we begin, I want to ask you something very honest. Something simple, but also a little uncomfortable if you really think about it deeply for a moment in your own life.
All right, I'm already curious and slightly nervous. So go ahead, Mike, ask your question, and let's see how many people listening will feel exactly the same inside after hearing it.
How many times did you want to speak, maybe in English or even in your own language, but you stopped yourself at the last second because you thought about what people might think of you?
That moment is so real, right? Your mind is full of words, your heart is pushing you to speak, but suddenly something inside you pulls you back like an invisible hand.
Exactly. And in that moment, your brain becomes very loud, checking every word, every sentence, every possible mistake, as if your life depends on being perfect before you open your mouth.
And then your body joins the drama. Your heartbeat becomes faster, your chest feels tight, and you suddenly feel like everyone is watching you, even if nobody actually is.
So what do? You smile, you stay quiet, you nod your head, and you pretend everything is fine, while inside you feel frustrated because you had something real to say.
And the interesting part comes later. Maybe when you are alone, maybe in your room, maybe while traveling, and suddenly the perfect sentence comes to your mind like magic.
Yes, suddenly you become a great speaker in your imagination, giving a powerful speech to no one, or maybe to your mirror, or even to a shampoo bottle in the shower.
Honestly, some of my best speeches in life have happened in the shower, where nobody could hear me, but I sounded extremely confident and intelligent in that private moment.
So if you are listening right now and thinking, this is exactly me, then stay with us, because today's conversation is built exactly for that silent struggle you face.
We are going to explore why this fear exists, where it starts, and most importantly, how you can slowly begin to speak more freely without feeling trapped inside your own thoughts.
And don't worry about your English level. This conversation is designed in a way that you can relax, listen, and learn naturally without pressure to understand every single word perfectly.
Yes, just stay with us. Let the ideas flow, let the language surround you, and trust that your brain is quietly learning even when you don't notice every detail.
Also, think of this like sitting with two friends who are talking honestly, not like a classroom, not like an exam, just a real human conversation that you are part of.
And while you listen, I want you to remember one moment, just one moment from your life when you wanted to speak but chose silence because of fear.
Hold that moment gently in your mind. Don't judge it, don't push it away, just observe it. Because today we are going to slowly change what that moment means to you.
All right, Mike, let me ask you something now. When do you think this fear actually begins in a person's life? Because it definitely doesn't just appear suddenly one day.
That's true. This fear usually starts much earlier than we realize, often in childhood, in school, in small moments that seem unimportant at the time, but stay longer than expected.
Yes, like when you say something in class and someone laughs, maybe it was just 1 second for them, but for you, it becomes a memory that stays for years.
Or when someone makes a small comment about how you speak, how you sound, or how you express yourself, and that tiny moment quietly changes how safe you feel speaking again.
And what's interesting is those moments don't disappear. They stay in your mind, almost like they are waiting in the background for the next similar situation to appear.
Exactly. And then when a new opportunity comes, like speaking in English or sharing an idea, your brain brings that old memory forward and says, "Be careful, this could happen again."
So, without realizing it, you start protecting yourself by staying quiet, not because you have nothing to say, but because your mind thinks silence is safer than expression.
And over time, this becomes a habit. Not speaking becomes normal, and you slowly start to believe that maybe you are just not the type of person who speaks confidently.
But the truth is very different. You were not born silent. You learned to be silent because of experiences that made you feel unsafe or judged at some point in your life.
And that is a very important thing to understand, because if something is learned, it means it can also be unlearned, step by step, with patience and awareness.
Exactly. And today is not about forcing yourself to suddenly become confident. It is about understanding your fear so you can gently begin to move beyond it. So now that we understand where this fear can begin, let's talk about how it feels today. Because as adults, it doesn't stay in school. It follows us everywhere, quietly.
Yes, it becomes bigger in a strange way, because now it is not just one classroom or a few classmates. It feels like the whole world is watching every small thing you do.
You walk into a room, or you join a meeting, or even open social media, and suddenly you feel like there is a spotlight on you, even if nobody is actually focusing on you.
And your body reacts immediately. Your chest feels tight, your breathing changes, and your thoughts start moving very fast, almost like they are running away from you.
That feeling has a very common word, and it is important to recognize it because when you name something, you start to understand it better instead of feeling lost inside it.
Yes, that word is anxious. And being anxious is more than just being a little nervous. It is when your whole system feels like something is wrong, even when nothing dangerous is happening.
Exactly. Your body prepares for danger, but there is no real danger, only a situation where you might speak, or be seen, or simply be yourself in front of others.
And then your brain starts telling stories, not calm stories, but dramatic ones, like, what if I say something wrong? Or what if they laugh at me?
Or even worse, what if they think I am not smart? Or what if they remember this moment forever and judge me because of it?
It's interesting how the brain creates a full movie in seconds, with you as the main character and everyone else as critics watching and judging your performance.
Yes, and in that movie, everything goes wrong. Every word sounds strange, every pause feels too long, and every reaction from others feels negative, even if it is neutral.
And because of that movie, you decide not to act at all. You stay quiet, you hold your words inside, and you choose safety instead of expression.
That action has a name too. We often say you hold back, which means you stop yourself from doing what you actually want to do in that moment.
And holding back becomes very common. You do it in conversations, in meetings, in messages, even in simple daily situations where speaking would actually be easy.
But your mind makes it feel difficult because it believes that speaking equals risk and staying silent equals protection, even if that protection costs your confidence.
And here is something very important that many people don't realize. Most people are not thinking about you as much as you think they are.
Yes, this is almost funny when you really understand it, because while you are worrying about what they are worrying about what other people think about them.
Exactly.
Everyone is inside their own head, thinking about their own problems, their own image, their own mistakes, not analyzing your every word like you imagine.
So, in reality, you are not the main character in their movie. You are just a small moment in their day that they will probably forget very quickly.
But your brain doesn't know that. It acts like there is a huge audience watching you, under a bright light, waiting for you to make a mistake.
Let's call that the invisible audience, because it feels real, it feels powerful, but it is mostly created by your own thoughts, not by actual people watching you.
And once you understand that this audience is invisible, not real, you can start to question it instead of automatically believing everything your mind tells you.
For example, next time you feel nervous, you can pause for a moment and quietly tell yourself something simple but powerful in English.
You can say, "Most people are thinking about themselves, not about me." And just that sentence can create a small space between you and your fear.
Yes, that small space is important because it gives you a chance to act differently instead of repeating the same habit of staying silent.
And you don't need to suddenly become very confident. You just need to take one small step. Maybe say one sentence, ask one question, or share one idea.
Even if your voice is not perfect, even if your grammar is not perfect, the goal is not perfection. The goal is expression and connection.
And something interesting happens when you take that small step. Most of the time, nothing bad happens. People respond normally and sometimes even positively.
Which slowly teaches your brain a new lesson, that speaking is not as dangerous as it once believed, and that you can survive these moments without problems.
And with each small experience like that, your fear becomes a little quieter. Not completely gone, but less powerful than before.
But, of course, sometimes people do say things. Sometimes there are comments, reactions, or even criticism that can hurt and bring back that old fear.
Yes, and that is where things become more complex, because now it is not only your imagination, but real words from real people that affect you.
And those moments can feel heavy because even one negative comment can stay in your mind much longer than many positive ones.
Which is why, in the next part, we should talk about something very important: how to deal with what people actually say, not just what we imagine they think.
Yes, because learning how to handle real comments, real criticism, and real reactions is a big step toward feeling free when you speak.
And once you understand that, you will not only speak more, but you will also feel lighter because you are no longer carrying every opinion inside you.
So if you are listening right now, just take a small breath. And remember, your thoughts are not always facts, and your fear is not always telling the truth.
And maybe today, just try one small action, one sentence, one moment where you choose to speak instead of staying silent, even if it feels a little uncomfortable.
So we talked about the invisible audience in your mind, but now let's face something a little more real, because sometimes people don't stay silent. Sometimes they actually say things.
Yes, and those moments can feel much stronger because now it is not just your imagination creating fear, it is a real voice, a real comment coming from someone else.
And even if it is just one sentence, it can stay with you for a very long time, almost like it finds a place in your memory and refuses to leave.
Exactly. Maybe someone laughed at your accent, or said your English sounds strange, or told you that you are too quiet or too different from others.
And for them, it might be just a casual comment, something they forget quickly. But for you, it can feel heavy, like it carries meaning about who you are.
Yes, and this is where we meet an important word, criticism, which means someone is pointing at something and saying it is wrong or not good.
Now, not all criticism is bad. Sometimes it can help you grow. Sometimes it can guide you, but many times it is just someone sharing their own opinion without care.
And the problem is, your brain does not always separate helpful feedback from hurtful comments. It just stores everything in the same emotional place.
So one negative comment can feel like a truth, even if it is just one person's perspective and not a real fact about you.
Let me give an example. Imagine someone says, "Your English sounds funny," and suddenly your mind starts building a story around that sentence.
Yes, you might start thinking, maybe I always sound strange, or maybe people don't take me seriously, even if nobody else has ever said that to you.
And that is how one small comment can grow into a big belief, not because it is true, but because it touched something sensitive inside you.
But here is a powerful idea that can change how you see these moments. Not every comment is a mirror. Some comments are just reflections of the other person.
Yes, sometimes people speak from their own insecurity, their own fear, their own discomfort, and their words say more about them than about you.
For example, if someone laughs at your English, maybe they are uncomfortable with their own mistakes, or maybe they never had the courage to try something new.
Or if someone criticizes your way of speaking, maybe they are used to only one way of speaking, and anything different feels strange to them.
So instead of asking, "What is wrong with me?" you can start asking, "What does this say about them?" And that small shift changes everything.
But even when you understand this idea, the feeling can still hurt because emotions don't disappear just because you understand them logically.
That is true, so the goal is not to pretend you don't care at all. The goal is to choose what you keep and what you let go.
And this is where another simple but powerful action comes in, learning how to brush off certain comments that do not deserve space in your mind.
I like to imagine it physically, like dust on your shoulder. You see it, you notice it, but then you gently remove it and continue your day.
Yes, you don't carry the dust with you. You don't put it in your pocket. You don't keep looking at it. You just let it go because it has no real value.
So when someone says something negative, you can pause and ask yourself, is this useful for me, or is this just noise?
If it is useful, you can learn from it, maybe improve something, maybe grow. But if it is just noise, you can choose not to carry it.
And that choice is very important because not every voice deserves space inside your head. Not every opinion deserves your attention.
But many people do the opposite. They ignore positive feedback and hold tightly to negative comments, as if those comments are more important.
Yes, it is like receiving 10 kind messages and one negative one, and your mind decides to focus only on that one negative message.
And over time, that creates a very unbalanced picture of yourself, where you see your flaws clearly but ignore your strengths completely.
So maybe a small practice you can try is this. When you hear a negative comment, don't just accept it immediately, question it calmly.
You can ask yourself, is this always true? Or is this just one opinion? Or even, would I say this to someone I care about?
And if the answer is no, then maybe this comment is not something you need to keep. Maybe it is something you can release.
Another helpful thing is to answer that comment with your own voice, not out loud, but inside your mind in a calm and clear way.
For example, if someone says, "Your English is bad," you can respond inside, "I am learning, and I am improving step by step."
That way, you are not just receiving words, you are also creating your own message, your own truth, instead of letting others define it for you.
And slowly, this builds something very important, a sense of inner stability, where you are not easily shaken by every opinion around you.
But of course, even with this strength, The old fear does not disappear completely. It can still stay quietly in the background.
And because of that fear, many people start doing something without even realizing it. They start acting in a way that feels safe instead of real.
Yes, they begin to perform, not on a stage, but in everyday life, playing a version of themselves that they think others will accept.
They become the person who always agrees, always smiles, always avoids conflict, even if inside they feel something completely different.
And over time, this creates a distance between who you are and how you act, which can feel very tiring and even confusing.
So in the next part, we should explore this idea of performing versus being real, because that is a key step toward finding your true voice.
Yes, because speaking English is not only about vocabulary and grammar, it is also about expressing who you are without fear.
And when you stop performing and start being real, your voice becomes stronger, not because it is perfect, but because it is honest.
So take a moment, think about one comment that stayed with you, and gently ask yourself, does this really belong to me, or can I let it go?
And remember, you are allowed to grow, you are allowed to learn, and you are allowed to speak, even if not everyone understands or agrees.
So we ended the last part talking about something many people don't notice at first, this idea that we are not always being ourselves, but instead playing a role.
Yes, and it sounds dramatic when we say it like that, but in reality, it happens in very small, quiet ways that slowly become part of your daily life.
For example, you might say yes when you actually want to say no, or laugh at something you don't really find funny, just to keep things comfortable.
Or you agree with an idea in a conversation even when something inside you says, no, that doesn't feel right, but you don't want to create tension.
And at that moment, you are not expressing your real thoughts. You are performing a version of yourself that feels safer in that situation.
Exactly. It is like wearing a mask, not a physical one, but an emotional one, where you adjust your behavior based on what you think people expect from you.
And the more you do it, the more natural it starts to feel. Until one day, you don't even realize that you are not acting as your true self anymore.
This is where an important word comes in, authentic, which simply means being real, being true to who you are without pretending or hiding parts of yourself.
Being authentic does not mean being perfect or always confident. It just means being honest in your expression, even if your voice is a little shaky.
But when you are always performing, you lose that connection with your authentic self, and that can create a strange feeling inside you.
Yes, it can feel like you are present in your own life, but not fully living it, like you are watching yourself instead of actually being yourself.
And one of the clearest signs of this is something people often describe as walking on eggshells, which sounds a little funny but feels very real.
Walking on eggshells means you are extremely careful with everything you say and do because you are afraid of upsetting someone or being judged.
It is like every step you take needs to be perfect. Every word needs to be safe, and there is no space for mistakes or honest reactions.
And that kind of life is very tiring because you are constantly thinking, checking, adjusting, instead of relaxing and being natural.
Also, when you are always careful for others, you start ignoring your own feelings, your own needs, and your own voice.
Yes, and that can create a deeper problem because while you are trying to keep everyone else comfortable, you slowly become uncomfortable inside yourself.
It is like protecting everyone else's emotions while leaving your own unprotected, and over time that imbalance becomes heavy.
So the question becomes, how do you start changing this pattern without suddenly feeling uncomfortable or creating conflict everywhere?
The answer is not to completely change your personality overnight, but to begin with small, honest moments where you choose truth over performance.
For example, instead of saying yes automatically, you can pause and say something simple like, I'm not sure, or I need to think about it.
Or instead of pretending you agree, you can say, I see your point, but I feel a little different, which is honest but still respectful.
These small changes might feel uncomfortable at first because you are breaking an old habit, but they are important steps toward being authentic.
And something interesting happens when you start doing this. People begin to see the real you, not the version you created for safety.
Some people will like it, some people might not. But the important thing is that you are no longer hiding behind a mask.
And the people who truly connect with you will connect with your real self, not with a version that you created just to be accepted.
Also, when you are authentic, your confidence starts to grow in a more stable way, not based on approval, but based on self-respect.
Because you are no longer asking, do they like me? You are starting to ask, am I being true to myself? Which is a very different question.
And that shift changes your experience completely, because now your focus is not on pleasing others, but on expressing yourself honestly.
Of course, this does not mean you should ignore others or become rude. It simply means you include yourself in the conversation, not just everyone else.
Yes, being kind to others is important, but being kind to yourself is equally important, and that includes allowing yourself to speak and be heard.
And when you practice this again and again, even in small ways, you start to feel more relaxed in conversations, more present, and more real.
But there is another trap that often stops people from being authentic, something that sounds logical but actually keeps you stuck.
Yes, and that is the idea of perfection, the belief that you need to be perfect before you can truly express yourself.
Many people tell themselves, I will speak when my English is perfect, or I will share my thoughts when I am completely confident.
But that moment never arrives, because perfection is not a real destination. It is an idea that keeps moving further away every time you try to reach it.
So instead of helping you move forward, perfection keeps you waiting. And while you are waiting, life continues without your full participation.
And that is something we need to explore next, because letting go of perfection is one of the most powerful steps towards speaking freely.
Yes, because your voice does not need to be perfect to be valuable. It just needs to be real and present in the moment.
So maybe for today, try one small thing. Notice one moment where you usually perform and gently choose a more honest response.
It does not have to be big. It does not have to be dramatic. Just one small step where you allow yourself to be a little more you.
So we ended the last part with something very important, this idea that many people are waiting for the perfect moment before they finally allow themselves to speak.
Yes, and that sounds reasonable at first because, of course, we all want to do things well. We want to sound clear, confident, and correct when we speak.
But the problem begins when that desire for doing well slowly turns into a rule that says, do not start until everything is perfect.
And that rule becomes very strict because suddenly nothing feels good enough. Your English is not perfect, your confidence is not perfect, your timing is not perfect.
So what do? You wait, you prepare, you think, you imagine, but you don't act because you believe action should only happen after perfection.
And here is the strange part. The more you wait to be perfect, the further perfection moves away because you are not giving yourself real experience.
It is like standing at the edge of a swimming pool and saying, I will jump in when I already know how to swim perfectly.
Which sounds impossible because learning happens in the water, not outside of it. And the same is true for speaking English or expressing yourself.
You don't learn by thinking only, you learn by doing, by trying, by making mistakes, by adjusting, and then trying again.
But perfection makes mistakes feel dangerous, like something you must avoid at all costs, instead of something that helps you improve.
So instead of taking your first step, you stay still, and that stillness slowly becomes a habit, a comfortable place that feels safe but limits your growth.
And over time, you might even start believing that you are not capable, when in reality, you just never gave yourself enough chances to try.
Let me share something personal. I used to tell myself that I would speak confidently in groups only when I felt completely ready.
That sounds very familiar, and I'm guessing that completely ready moment never really arrived the way you expected.
Exactly. I kept waiting, and because I was waiting, I stayed in the same place. The fear did not go away. It actually stayed strong.
So, what changed for you? What made you finally move from waiting to actually doing something different?
I realized that confidence was not something that comes before action. It is something that grows because of action, even imperfect action.
That is a powerful shift because it means you don't need to feel ready to begin. You just need to be willing to start small.
Yes, and starting small is very important because your brain can accept small steps much more easily than big, dramatic changes.
For example, instead of saying, I will speak perfectly in a group, you can say, I will say one sentence today, even if it is not perfect.
Or instead of waiting to write a perfect message, you can send a simple message with basic words and trust that communication is more important than perfection.
And when you take that small action, something interesting happens. You realize that nothing terrible happens. The world does not collapse because of one mistake.
Yes, and that experience is very important because it teaches your brain a new reality that mistakes are not dangerous. They are normal.
And once your brain learns that, it becomes easier to take the next step, and then the next one, slowly building momentum.
This is where we introduce a new idea. Instead of focusing on perfection, you focus on progress, which means small improvements over time.
Progress is quiet. It is not dramatic, but it is powerful because it moves you forward step by step without the pressure of being perfect.
And when you look back after some time, you realize that those small steps created a big change, even though each step felt simple.
So instead of asking, is this perfect? You can start asking, is this a step forward? And that question is much more helpful.
Another important thing is to accept that feeling uncomfortable is part of the process, not a sign that something is wrong.
Yes, many people think that if they feel nervous, it means they should stop. But actually, it often means they are doing something new and growing.
So instead of running away from that feeling, you can stay with it, breathe, and still take a small action, even if your voice feels a little shaky.
And each time you do that, you build trust in yourself, not because everything is easy, but because you know you can act even when it is not easy.
That is real confidence. Not the absence of fear, but the ability to move forward even when fear is present.
And this is especially important when learning English, because waiting for perfect grammar or perfect pronunciation can stop you for a very long time.
But communication is not about perfection. It is about connection, about sharing ideas, about being understood, even if your sentences are not perfect.
And people usually care more about your message than your mistakes. They want to understand you, not judge every small error.
So maybe this week you can choose one area where you have been waiting for perfection and decide to take one small, imperfect action.
It could be speaking one sentence, writing one comment, asking one question, anything that moves you from waiting to doing.
And when you do it, don't focus on what was wrong. Focus on the fact that you showed up, that you tried, that you moved forward.
Because every time you choose action over perfection, you are breaking an old pattern and creating a new one that supports your growth.
And slowly, that new pattern becomes stronger, and the old belief that you must be perfect begins to lose its power.
So remember, you don't need to be perfect to begin, you just need to begin. And perfection will never be the thing that makes you free.
What makes you free is action, even small, imperfect, human action that allows your voice to exist in the real world.
So now that we have broken the illusion of perfection, let's talk about something many people misunderstand, this idea of confidence and where it actually comes from.
Yes, because a lot of people think confidence is something you either have or don't have, like it is a personality trait you are born with.
Almost like some people arrive in the world already confident, already comfortable speaking, already free from fear, while others feel stuck forever.
But in reality, confidence is not magic. It is not something you receive once and keep forever. It is something you build over time through action.
And one of the best ways to understand it is to imagine confidence as a muscle, something that grows stronger when you use it regularly.
If you want strong muscles in your body, you don't just think about exercise, you actually move your body. You repeat small actions again and again.
And at the beginning, those actions feel difficult. Your muscles feel weak, your movements feel uncomfortable, but with repetition, everything changes.
The same is true for confidence. It grows when you do small, brave things consistently, not when you wait to feel ready before doing anything.
So instead of saying, I want to be confident, you can start saying, I will practice small moments of courage every day.
And those small moments are what we can call reps, like an exercise, where one rep is one complete movement that helps build strength.
Yes, one rep could be saying hello to someone, asking a simple question, or speaking one sentence in English, even if it feels a little uncomfortable.
And the important thing is not how big the action is, but that you repeat it, because repetition is what slowly changes your comfort level.
At first, even a small action might feel difficult. Your heart might beat faster, your voice might feel uncertain, but that is part of the process.
And instead of seeing that discomfort as a problem, you can start seeing it as a sign that you are training your confidence.
Exactly. Just like in the gym, when your muscles feel tired, it doesn't mean something is wrong. It means you are working and growing.
So when you feel nervous before speaking, you can tell yourself, this is one rep. This is me building my confidence step by step.
And that simple shift can make a big difference because now you are not avoiding the feeling. You are using it as part of your growth.
Another helpful idea is to make your reps very small and specific because your brain is more likely to accept small challenges than big ones.
For example, instead of saying, I will speak a lot in English today, you can say, I will say one sentence in English to someone.
Or, I will ask one question, or I will write one short comment. Something clear, simple, and possible within your current level.
And when you complete that small action, it is important to recognize it, not ignore it, because that recognition reinforces your progress.
You can even say to yourself, that was one rep, and give yourself a small moment of appreciation for taking that step.
Because many people move forward but never acknowledge it. And without recognition, it is easy to feel like nothing is changing.
But when you start noticing your small wins, you begin to see that you are not stuck. You are actually moving forward slowly.
And those small wins create momentum, which means it becomes easier to take the next step and then the next one after that.
Of course, there will still be moments when you feel like going back to old habits, moments when staying silent feels easier.
And that is completely normal because growth is not a straight line. It moves up and down, forward and backward at times.
The important thing is not to be perfect in your practice, but to return to it again and again, even after difficult moments.
Yes, consistency matters more than intensity. Small actions repeated many times are more powerful than big actions done only once.
Another thing that can help is to write down your reps, just a simple list where you track your small actions each day.
For example, spoke one sentence, asked one question, wrote one comment, and then you can see your effort clearly in front of you.
And when you look at that list after a few days or weeks, you realize that you are building something, even if it felt small at the time.
This also helps your brain shift from focusing on mistakes to focusing on effort and progress, which is much healthier.
Because if you only look at what went wrong, you will feel discouraged. But if you look at what you did, you will feel motivated.
And motivation is important, not as something that comes first, but as something that grows from action and progress.
So instead of waiting to feel motivated before you act first, and then motivation follows as a result of your effort.
This is a completely different way of thinking, and once you understand it, you stop waiting and start moving.
And slowly, your identity begins to change. You no longer see yourself as someone who is afraid to speak, but as someone who is practicing courage.
That identity shift is very powerful because it affects how you approach situations, how you think, and how you respond to fear.
So the next time you feel nervous, instead of saying, "I am not confident," you can say, "I am building my confidence."
And that one sentence can change how you feel because it reminds you that you are in a process, not stuck in a fixed state.
So today, choose 3 small reps, just 3 simple actions that you can take, and focus on completing them, not perfectly, but honestly.
And when you finish them, take a moment to notice it, to appreciate it, and to remind yourself that you are moving forward.
Because confidence is not something you wait for, it is something you create through your actions, one small rep at a time. So far, we have talked about fear, criticism, perfection, and confidence. But now I want to explore something that can completely change how you experience all of this.
Yes, because even if fear is still there is a way to relate to it differently, not as an enemy that stops you, but as something you can work with.
And that shift comes from changing one simple thing, the questions you ask yourself when you feel afraid.
Because fear usually speaks in very specific questions, questions that make everything feel dangerous and heavy in your mind.
For example, when you are about to speak, fear might ask, "What if I make a mistake?" Or, "What if they laugh at me?"
Or, what if I sound stupid? Or, what if I forget my words? And each of these questions pulls you deeper into hesitation.
And when your mind is full of those questions, your body reacts, your confidence drops, and your natural reaction is to avoid the situation completely.
But here is where something interesting can happen. Instead of trying to remove fear completely, you can change the direction of your thinking.
Yes, you can replace those fear-based questions with curiosity-based questions, which feel lighter, more open, and less judgmental.
For example, instead of asking, "What if I fail?" you can ask, "What might happen if I try?"
Or instead of thinking, what if they judge me? You can think, what can I learn from this moment?
That small change might seem simple, but it creates a completely different emotional experience inside you.
Because curiosity does not expect perfection, it expects discovery. It allows space for mistakes, because mistakes become part of learning.
It is like becoming a scientist in your own life, where every conversation is an experiment, not a test that you must pass perfectly.
And when you see it as an experiment, the pressure becomes lighter because you are not trying to prove something, you are trying to explore something.
Let me share something personal. When I was younger, I used to feel very nervous before speaking in front of people.
And what kind of thoughts were going through your mind in those moments? Was it mostly fear-based thinking?
Yes, my mind was full of questions like, what if I forget everything? Or what if people think I am not good enough?
That sounds very familiar, and I think many people listening right now can relate to that exact inner conversation.
But one day, I decided to try something different. I told myself, let me treat this like an experiment and just say one sentence.
That is a very small and clear action, and it removes the pressure of needing to perform perfectly in that situation.
Yes, and after I said that one sentence, something surprising happened. Nothing terrible happened, people listened, and the moment passed naturally.
And that experience gave you new information, something your brain did not have before, which is that speaking is not as dangerous as it feels.
Exactly. And that is the power of curiosity. It allows you to gather real experiences instead of staying stuck in imagined fears.
So instead of avoiding situations, you start entering them with a different mindset, not to prove yourself, but to learn something new.
And even if something goes wrong, even if you forget a word or make a mistake, it becomes part of your learning, not a failure.
Because now your question is not, did I do it perfectly, but what did I discover from this experience?
And that shift helps your brain relax because it no longer feels like every moment is a test of your value or ability.
Another helpful practice is to reflect after a conversation, but in a constructive way, not by criticizing yourself.
Yes, instead of focusing only on mistakes, you can ask yourself two simple questions in English after you speak.
You can ask, what went well? And what surprised me? Which are both positive and open-ended questions.
For example, you might say, what went well? I spoke more than I expected. Or, what surprised me? The other person was very friendly.
And those answers help your brain build a more balanced view of your experience, instead of focusing only on what felt uncomfortable.
Over time, this creates a new habit where your mind starts looking for growth and progress instead of only searching for mistakes.
And slowly, your focus shifts from fear to curiosity, from avoidance to exploration, from silence to expression.
This does not mean fear disappears completely, but it becomes less powerful because it is no longer the only voice guiding your actions.
Let's try. Instead of a fearful voice that says, stay safe and stay quiet.
And that voice becomes stronger each time you listen to it, each time you take a small step instead of stepping back.
So the next time you feel nervous, try this simple shift. Don't ask, what if I fail? Ask, what can I learn if I try?
And then take one small action, not a big one, just a small step that allows you to move forward with curiosity instead of fear.
Because growth does not come from waiting until you feel no fear. It comes from moving forward while fear is still present.
And curiosity makes that movement possible because it changes the meaning of the experience from something dangerous to something valuable.
So we have walked through many ideas together today. from fear and silence to action and curiosity, and now it feels like a good moment to slow everything down.
Yes, let's take a breath together, because sometimes the most important part of learning is not adding more, but letting what you heard settle inside you.
And if you remember the beginning of this episode, we asked you to think about one moment when you stayed silent even though you wanted to speak.
Maybe that moment feels a little different now. Not something to feel bad about, but something to understand with more kindness.
Because that silence was not weakness. It was protection. Your mind trying to keep you safe based on what it learned in the past.
But today, you started learning something new, that speaking is not as dangerous as it feels, and that your voice deserves space in the world.
And you don't need to change everything at once. You don't need to suddenly become confident in every situation.
You just need to take small steps, small, honest actions that slowly build a new experience inside you.
Now, before we finish, let's take a few important words and ideas from today and look at them again in a simple and calm way.
Yes, think of this like a gentle review, not something to memorize, but something to understand so you can use it naturally in your life.
Let's start with the word anxious, which describes that feeling when your mind is busy and your body feels tense before speaking.
For example, you can say, I feel anxious when I speak in English, and just naming that feeling can already help you feel more aware.
Next is hold back, which means stopping yourself from saying or doing something you actually want to express.
You might say, I often hold back my ideas in meetings, and recognizing that habit is the first step to changing it.
Another important word is authentic, which means being real, being true to yourself instead of pretending to be someone else.
For example, I want to be more authentic when I speak, which means you want your words to reflect your true thoughts and feelings.
We also talked about walk on eggshells, which means being extremely careful with your words because you are afraid of making mistakes or upsetting others.
You can say, I feel like I walk on eggshells when I speak English, and that shows how much pressure you are putting on yourself.
Then we have brush off, which means choosing not to keep negative comments or opinions in your mind.
For example, I try to brush off negative comments and continue speaking, which shows strength and emotional control.
And finally, lean into, which means moving closer to something uncomfortable instead of avoiding it.
You can say, I will lean into my fear and try speaking anyway, which is a very powerful and brave decision,
Now, you don't need to use all these words at once. Even if you use 1 or 2 this week, that is already real progress.
Because learning is not about doing everything perfectly. It is about using what you know in real situations step by step.
And the same is true for confidence, for speaking, for expressing yourself. Everything grows slowly with practice and patience.
So as you go into your week, remember one simple idea. You don't need to be perfect. You just need to be present and willing to try.
Say one sentence, share one idea, ask one question. Even if your voice feels a little unsure, that is how growth begins.
And when you do that, don't forget to notice it. Don't ignore your effort. Appreciate it, because every small step matters.
Also, be kind to yourself, because change takes time, and every person moves at their own pace.
You are not late. You are not behind. You are exactly where you need to be to start moving forward from this moment.
And remember, most people are not judging you the way you imagine. They are busy living their own lives, just like you.
So you can relax a little, breathe a little deeper, and give yourself permission to speak without so much pressure.
And if you make a mistake, that is completely fine. It means you are learning, it means you are trying, and that is something to be proud of.
Because the real success is not perfect English or perfect confidence, it is the courage to show up and use your voice anyway.
And you are already doing that by listening, by thinking, and hopefully by taking small actions after this episode.
So thank you for spending this time with us, for being open, for being present, and for allowing yourself to grow.
If this conversation helped you, you can always listen again or share it with someone who might need the same message.
And we would love to hear from you. When do you feel the most afraid to speak? And what small step will you try this week?
All right, take one more deep breath and carry this feeling with you. Not pressure, not fear, but a quiet sense of possibility.
This is Lily.
And this is Mike.
And you've been listening to English Medium Podcast.
We'll see you in the next conversation where your English and your confidence continue to grow step by step.